What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be working on fixing the sound on the Sega Genesis. I'm your host JD. Welcome back to the channel, and this is a two-part series. This part is going to be working on opening up the Genesis and actually demodding the work I did with the Genesis and actually fixing the sound in the second part. So thank you very much for clicking on this video. Hit that like button. These videos are not the type of videos that will get a ton of views, so what would help is if you hit the like button, subscribe, share the video with people that you feel that might enjoy this content. So let's go ahead and talk about this. I really enjoy playing the Sega Genesis right now. This is the Model 1 Genesis. You may notice there's a little modification on the back. I actually did this myself. I actually wanted to make a video about actually doing this mod, but I wasn't sure if this was going to work, and to my displeasure, it did not work. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on with the Sega Genesis. Turns on, it plays games very well. Have it hooked up to the OSSC via SCART RGB. It looks fantastic. I love the quality. In fact, you should check some of my recent videos of me playing Sonic the Hedgehog 1. The video quality in there is pretty nice. The only issue I have with this particular Model 1 is the sound. I actually have some footage where I recorded how it's actually picking up the sound. It will pick up one side but not the other. And what's good about the Sega Genesis 1 model is that it can produce really high quality stereo sound out of the games. You would utilize the back for the RGB, then you would plug in to the front with the 3.5mm jack. You would then turn up the volume all the way up, and you would put it through your OSSC or whatever you use to record or broadcast your gameplay, and you're golden. The only problem is this is not working. I did some research, and I will leave a link in the description down below if you want to try to do a mod like this. Now, it didn't necessarily work for me. It actually works. Like, you can hear everything coming out of this wire, and it works, but the problem that I'm experiencing may not be the same problem that you may be experiencing with your Genesis. The problem with this Genesis is that the capacitors in the sound function of the Genesis is going bad, so the capacitors need to be replaced. I didn't know that was a problem until after I installed the mod, because the problem I was experiencing from the 3.5mm jack, I was not expecting to experience with the RCA modification I ended up doing. Is exactly the same issue. What we're going to be doing is I'm going to be demodding my Sega Genesis by opening it back up again, getting my soldering iron back out, not necessarily desolder, but I'm going to get the solder hot enough to undo the work I did, and we'll go from there. So if you're interested in something like that, continue to watch. This is going to be part one, where I'm going to just take the Genesis apart. Hopefully everything's working back to normal as I had it before I did all this work, and then we're going to order the capacitors and resolder the capacitors into the board. Hopefully that solves the issue. So again, I'll leave a link in the description down below if you are interested in doing the mod like this. My only criticism of the mod I ended up doing with this was that you're taking sound directly from the chip doing it this way, and it's not amplified. So unless you have a setup like I do where you can amplify your sound, it's gonna sound real quiet. Still good, just quiet. So enough talk. Let's just get started with taking the Genesis apart. Okay, so you might think I might be going into the ER room, the operation room, and just do some cutting up and stuff like that. Unfortunately, we're not doing that today. This is just a precaution. I'm just wearing PPE. First off, I got gloves just to make sure I don't burn myself using the soldering iron. I'm wearing my goggles because of course there's no sparking that's gonna go on, but I just like to wear them just because. I have a mask on because I don't want to smell the fumes coming out of the soldering work that I'm going to be doing. I do have a fan running, however, I still don't want to be smelling this stuff in, and neither should you. Another disclaimer: I am not a professional. I am not a Sega technician. The work I'm about to do, first, I'm not a professional soldering person. I'm a beginner. This is like my third time plugging in this basic $10 soldering iron, which barely gets the work done. I am not responsible if you want to do something like this, and if you end up breaking your Genesis, I am not responsible. So no going into this. This is not, I could break it. I don't know. I was lucky when I got it hooked up and it worked, but I can break it doing this work again. So I'm telling you now, and my glasses are steaming up while I'm doing this. You have been forewarned. Do this at your own risk. I'm not responsible. Let's get some work done. All right, here we go. I went ahead and took off my safety goggles because I don't expect any spark to go on, but again, I don't want, the steaming is just crazy. But also, just make sure you have the tools you need. I have a small little 0 Phillips screwdriver. I wish I had a bigger one, but this is enough for me to get into what I need to do. So get into these 6 screws. You gotta make sure you take out these 6 screws here. After you take off all 6 screws, flip her over without banging it on the desk. And then we're gonna slowly pull this up. Gotta be careful because this power button right here, it has a wire between this top of the case to where the motherboard sits, and it's connected to one wire. So you gotta be very careful as you take this open. All right, so I'm just gonna keep it together because there's on that link, what it says you can do, you can cut these 2 wires and then use butt connectors like these to put them back together. But I'm not gonna do that. But now, the next thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and remove all these Phillips screws that holds the RF shield to the console. There's quite a few of them. I don't know the exact number, but we're gonna go ahead and unscrew those. We should have all the screws taken out. This should come right off easily. Sorry it's sideways, but this is essentially the motherboard right here. You have your slot for your games. You got the main chips on the top. You have your RF shield right here. You have your little connection for the power right here on the side. So I'm actually pulling that out right now. I want to make sure y'all saw that. It was right back here. It's the little notch that it sits on. But you just take that off and set it to the side. Now, there may be a couple more screws that I need to take out. And I'm trying to look at that right now before I take the board and flip it upside down. This is the modification I did with the RCA cables. I essentially just spliced the cable. There's a positive and a ground, and I'll show y'all that. But I'm going to go ahead and get this cable out now. I had it loop through the extension port on the back of the Genesis. So I'm just gonna go ahead and see if I can carefully slide it out. No pun intended. No pun intended. Man, this was definitely a pain when I put this in the first day around. It was rewarding when I had it connected, but then once I noticed it didn't actually solve the problem, it was definitely disappointing because we put all that work in just for it to not really work. So I think what I need to do is I need to go ahead, lift the board up. It should come right up, and if it doesn't, there's probably a screw in the way. So let's take a look. You have your 3.5mm jack that should be able to come right off. And yes, there are still screws connected to the bottom of the case, or the chassis, whatever you want to call it. There's a screw right here. Actually, I think the cartridge is part of the chassis. So we're gonna go ahead and unscrew that as well. This should come right out now. Wonder what is in the way right now. Yeah. There we go. So now I'm gonna loop my modification out from the back of the chassis. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the bottom chassis, get that out of the way. I'm gonna see if I can flip her. As you can see right here, this is my work. I put electrical tape on top because I didn't want it touching anything else. It wasn't the best of work, but we're gonna go ahead and peel that out so you can see my work. And it doesn't look good. In fact, let me see if we can zoom in on it. You have your left channel and you have your right channel. There's the power, and then on the top is the ground. I was able to do this. It wasn't very pretty, but I was able to get it done, and it works. It's just, unfortunately, it's not amplified. So that's one thing you need to know going into this, is that it's not amplified. And two, you just gotta be careful because you don't want to bridge. We're gonna get that soldering iron ready, and we're gonna go ahead and attempt to desolder this wire out, and we should be good to go. So we've got my soldering iron. We're going to tin it, make sure it's good to go. Okay, so we're gonna go and try and desolder these wires. Let's go heat up the solder and then see if we can get it out. Starting with the positive. See if I can get to the solder just enough. Get this wire out. And like I said, I'm not good at this. Yeah, this is some really bad soldering work, ladies and gentlemen. Really bad. Okay. That's good. Next. See if we can get to this next one without burning or breaking anything. There we go. Hallelujah. That's one cable. One cable gone. It's getting hot. All right, that was pretty clean. One more to go. And got it. All right, so from the looks of it, this is not great work. And honestly, you should probably resolder this work, but nothing's bridging. Everything's still intact. So there's nothing to it really, but to just put it back together. Okay, so while I'm down here, I might as well just clean some areas while I'm down here just to kind of clean it up. You know, these things were built like tanks back in the day. As long as you do just the basics of cleaning, they're gonna last you for a lifetime. So I'm glad that we're doing some basic cleaning on here. Let's go ahead and put this thing back together. I was able to get this cable out of the way, bring it back to its normal self. If you take a look at this, I don't know if y'all can see this on camera, but there's a lot of like liquid on here. So whoever purchased this Genesis before me, unfortunately didn't take very good care of it, which probably could also be contributing to the sound issue that I'm having on the Genesis. It wasn't something I was really paying attention to until recently. But what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and put things back together the way we had it. Put things back in their slot. So you can go in at an angle if you need to, so that the controller ports go back in place, and this should seat right back in as normal. Got your 3.5 millimeter jack back in place. Go ahead and put your power adapter port back in place where it's seated in the right direction. There we go. Goes in one way, and that is okay. Everything's back in this place. If I remember correctly, we got 2 screws, one on each side of the cartridge slot. It was under here. I remember it was under that 3.5 millimeter jack port. RF shield back in place. Right, perfect. As far as I remember, the blocks go on the outer part of the RF shield, and then silvers go on top. There we go. There we go. Oh, cool, that one goes right in. Yep, that one goes perfectly. Things back in place. Make sure that your volume lever is matched up with your volume slider that's here on the bottom. So when you put it in, it's not gonna be weird. It slides right back in with no issue. Then we screw the 6 screws back into place. I'm gonna test it, make sure that the sound's still good. Hopefully I didn't break it. All right, all 6 screws are back in place. Sega Genesis is back together, so there's nothing else to it but to test to see if it works. Okay, so as you can see on the graph on the camera, you'll see that the left channel is going. And you can, it's hard to see on the camera, but you can see like the black indicators. You'll see that the left channel is normal, but then the right channel on the bottom is lower, and as a result you get bad audio quality. The left channel is fine, but then the right channel is trash. One way, like for example, Sonic the Hedgehog, the rings are tied to the left and right channel. So for every ring you collect, one ring will go on the left channel, one ring will hit on the right channel. I'm also recording the footage so you can actually see and hear what I'm hearing. So the solution from the research I have compiled is just not run into lava, but is to purchase a capacitor kit while not killing yourself in the process multiple times. Get a capacitor kit, disconnect the soldering setup. Oh geez, Louise. Oh, that's ugly little worm things. Then resolder with the new capacitors. Hopefully that will solve the problem. If it doesn't, we have a backup plan. So again, thank you so much for those of you who watched the entire video. Really appreciate your support. Another way you can support this channel is just by subscribing, hitting that like button, and share the video. This is not a viral video. It's not gonna get 1 million views, but it will get more views based on the shares that you do. So just click the share button. And also, since that was weird, when you actually, when you hit the notification button, you will know when the new video comes out. And I'm just gonna die. So thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Have a wonderful day.